Welcome back, one and all, to PodStance, the PunkStance Podcast. It is me once again introducing, I believe, episode 9 of Albums That Saved My Life. We're nearly at double digits, folks. We're nearly there. I'm even surprised we got this far, so thank you very much for listening in once again. This time we have Mr. George Rutt, who, if you do recall, has been with the PunkStance channel for quite a while now. He initially recorded one of the first, if not the first, video that I put on the channel, which was the Young Hearts video I did back in 2021. If I'm not mistaken. I'm fairly sure it was early 21, so over 3 years now. He also featured in the second episode of Discs and Drinks. If you don't remember what that is, good. It was a very strange experiment that I played. It was basically like a Game Grumps, 10-minute Power Hour episode, but in like a style of me, should we say, and it was all about music and having a few cans and chatting about CDs that I had just in a cupboard somewhere. I don't know if it's still actually on the channel, but if you think that sounds like your kind of thing, it's just a bit of a laugh. It's very silly. Go and have a look. But it's now George's turn to officially come onto the channel. I think he's even written a couple of posts on the page itself. So he's had quite a strong part in the page for quite a while now. Very good friend of mine, and we chatted about, I don't think not one, but like 3 different albums. George found it very hard to pick one specific record to talk about, which is fair enough. I've asked a lot of people who wanted to come on the show, and they can't really narrow it down to one. So there's one main one, should we say, and then 2 ones on the side that he also chats about in detail. But it's still very interesting. There's still just as much depth. Albeit we don't really talk about the albums as much. I think most of this was spent talking about Pokémon and weird anecdotes from our life. But I think in the end, that's what this show is all about. It's people showing their true colours through the music that they listen to. So I wanted to thank George very much for coming onto the show. And yeah, hopefully you guys will enjoy it. If you like Pokémon, this is definitely an episode for you. But yeah, I'll see you on the other side.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Let's say, you could pull anything out of this.
Pull anything out of a hat, certainly, with my magic.
I've seen your editing skills. You've turned drunk people in a camera into actually watchable content.
It is true. I have done that. Surprisingly, pulling out of a hat is not.
I'm glad there was a hat involved there. I was getting worried.
Good save me. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here because
I'm glad I'm here.
I feel like you've been tossing and turning yourself at night, thinking, "Oh no, which one do I pick?" But feasibly, we can, as long as you can talk about all of them, it doesn't. Really matter.
Because they're all basically kind of the same thing, but not.
Nice.
Which is very, very helpful. I'm aware. I'll use my big words later on. But
yeah, no, of course.
Because we can get straight into it if you want. We can start talking. Depends where you want to edit this from. But
you do what you want. You do what you want, mate. We're free flowing today. I've made no notes because I feel like we know each other so well that we can just chat, just utter bollocks, and we'll eventually get to a point. It could be 40 minutes from now. It could be 3 hours from now, and either way, it'll still be great.
Well, does Sunday count as a school night? Like, we've eventually got to go to bed, but
yeah, well,
okay.
It's not too late. I think it only took us 20 minutes to actually get here and figure out how
it's
to
fine
get this to
because
work.
we tested this version and then we tried to test a different version of recording. So yeah, it's all part of the process.
I mean, we tend to use Discord.
This entire session might be just a pure guinea pig trial, and none of it's usable. But at least you know how you want to record them in future.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I've done a few already that were over Zoom.
Have you? A couple of Zoomy ones?
Yeah. Well, the one that went up at the time of recording yesterday was one that I did for a New Jersey band. So they were 5 hours behind me.
You're 1 step ahead of me. I actually haven't listened to Release Ramble 2.
Oh no!
So we're both unprepared. It's fine.
Well, you'll get on that, I'm sure.
I will happily listen to that at work tomorrow while I'm cursing how chemistry is.
Yeah. Well, it's not about them. It's about you.
Well, yeah.
It's about you, George Rutt.
You know, it is, and that's scary.
You are. Everything revolves around you.
Don't tell Neve that.
I revolve around you, certainly.
You trying to say I'm fat? I got main
No,
gravitational pull.
every time I see you, I just have to go around you as one big circle. And I go, yep, he's still here. He exists.
Yep, all of them still there.
Like how in Pokemon Ranger, where you get the stylus and you have to circle
Oh,
around the
I mean,
Pokemon to
do
catch
you
it.
know how many DSs must have broken from that game? Like I don't know if it
I
was just
love
me playing it, but like I almost had to get screen protectors because I was pushing so hard on that screen it was going to break
I love
just
that
for
game
that
so
game.
much. So much. I'm doing as well. The people listening won't know, but after this, we're going to get onto a ROM hack, aren't we? The
Oh, we are
Unbound.
indeed. We are indeed. Well, depending on how long this takes. If we hit the 3 hour mark of chatting, then it might be a tad late. But,
Lord knows that we could.
Oh yeah.
We've always got to speed the process along as much as I can. I wouldn't be a very good interviewer, if I couldn't speed the process along. But I could chat. I could chat about Pokemon all evening. And we undoubtedly will once this is done.
Yeah, we undoubtedly will. I have to say, I am intrigued at the chocolate bar chat that seems to recur in multiple episodes.
Well, it's just so I've literally got a Whisper Easter egg. I was buying one on the way back from London.
It's not even. I was about to say it's not even February. It is February.
I know it is
Um,
February now. God.
I don't even know
Well,
when Easter is this year, but it feels way too early.
we'll get part. Well, January went like
Saying that again, something completely random.
January was so fucking fast. Like
Yeah,
I was in a pram 8 minutes ago. I don't like it. It's just
you were in
terrible.
a trap in January. Was that just like a style choice,
Nah,
or are you?
it's a weird kink. Don't tell anyone. Deeply concerning. No one needs to know about this. Well, speaking of the past, the past.
The
Um,
past, that
what?
funny old thing.
Oh, that old chestnut. Obviously, this is albums that saved my life, and we have to talk about music at some point
At some point, at some point.
Pokemon and niche kinks. That's the title.
There you go. I was gonna say that'll do.
So please, George Rutt, tell me, because obviously everyone else really is dying to know, all eight of them, what your album is, or what your albums are. Wink. Foreshadowing is a device used in literacy.
That is the slowest. Like people won't see it because obviously it's a podcast, but it was the slowest movement of a glass to your lips I've ever
I'm
seen.
gonna need so much water today. Jesus
You're going to be
Christ.
so hydrated. You're going to be pissing for days.
I'm gonna have I'm gonna have the clearest piss you've ever seen. You could fill it back up in a water bottle and sell it.
That's just recycling.
Save the world, piss in a bottle. This is a very different episode to what I normally do because
I
obviously
love how you tried there to segue into music, and we immediately segued back out of that lane.
it's hard, isn't it? It's really difficult.
Yeah.
Well,
It's because I'm currently looking at on my phone at the albums in front of me, and I'm still trying to figure out which one I actually want to go for.
you've been deliberating about this for a while, haven't you?
I think I know which one's taking my top spot, but it kind
Okay.
of feels I don't want to be disingenuous to the other two, which I love so much, but they all mean slightly different things to me.
Well,
I
we
say
have.
that two of them mean basically the same thing, and one of them is kind of out there.
Well, it
But
means
I
we have
think,
a lot more to talk about.
well, again, depends how much we actually talk about music and how much we end up talking about
Let's just say, yeah,
Pokemon and niche kinks. Whatever
it's
you.
the niche Kinks. It's
Mm,
that's the band that the Kinks wanted to be, but they had to take a word out,
yeah, too long,
and they couldn't be.
too many characters.
Yeah, they couldn't be the niche because then no one would find them. That's my joke of the day.
There you go. I hated it. Thank you. Put a real smile on my face, but I
Yeah.
hated it.
Well, please tell me
Um,
what, because I thought they were going to be like three equally measured albums, but now you've said you might have actually made your mind up about one or two.
I think I have, and I think it's got to be 2012's Imagine Dragons Night Visions.
Wow, that was the one
Um,
I least expected actually of the three.
Really, of the
Yeah,
three,
genuinely.
I gave Nick my short list, but I think it's got to be because it was. I listened to it again this morning, and it's just okay. So technically, I do have to say, specifically, it's Night Visions Deluxe, which
Okay.
was also 2012,
Good.
and I have a lot of special songs that mean a lot to me, but I don't have many like full albums.
Yeah. Well, this is what you were saying because you thought
Uh,
you could make an 11-track album.
oh, I could do Desert Island
Just
Discs really well.
just not.
Elton John, Crocodile Rock, mwah, best opening track you can get. But wouldn't go for an Elton John album.
Mm,
Doesn't mean a lot to me because that's the only song that I remember dancing around to in my undies as a 5-year-old with my dad playing on a record player. Don't remember any other songs from that album.
Nice. I
But
mean, you've given me that image now. I'm gonna have
you're
to.
very welcome.
I'm gonna have to.
You can save that one for later.
You were 5.
No, I think Imagine Dragons probably were the first band that I knew I liked.
Hmm.
Which might be a weird thing to say, but like before I was, I don't know, like 10, 11, 12, music was just a thing that I didn't really care about at all. Legitimately, it was on the radio. We always had the radio playing, so I vaguely knew like more up and coming tracks back in the day. And my mum had a few CDs that she liked playing, and my dad has a very weird selection of music. We're talking like Bonzo Dog Doodah Band and John Shuttleworth, among Pink Floyd and other things. It's a wild range. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something about, because when Radioactive came out, I remember it distinctly because we had a family computer in our little computer area. And I remember me and all of my siblings watching the music video to Radioactive. And I don't know if you remember it. It's the one with the teddy bears cage fighting.
I absolutely do not remember that.
You can watch it later. There's teddy bears cage fighting. Think Pokemon, to be honest.
Okay.
Actually, it's basically Pokemon. There's electric teddy bears just beating the crap out of each other. And I remember watching it and thinking, I actually quite like this song. And it was the first time that I think I've ever consciously registered that thought. And about that time, my eldest brother, oh God, I don't know if you ever knew this one back in the day. Did you ever know about the website Groove Shark?
Oh, vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, the one that got taken down and sued for lots of money, if I remember correctly, because they were just pirating so much music.
Yeah, there was
like none of it was legally there, and it was fully all downloadable. It was a lovely site, very user friendly, all things considered.
Back in the day, I remember there were so many sites like that, though. I remember like being 11, just starting secondary school, and us sharing over Bluetooth tracks that we had found. Like that's the conversation that we have about like us our age. It's like we were the last people to use non-electric scooters. That's another one. We used Bluetooth not to attach headphones, but to send pictures and memes and music to each other from our Blackberries and very small Samsung. It was a weird time, but I wasn't much. So, but yeah.
But yeah, I remember being on Groove Shark and it basically being a thing of I found the song I liked, I found a few songs I liked, and it being this bit where I had an account, and I just remember going like, I wonder what else this artist has done, and clicking it, and obviously Night Visions as an album just appeared, and I was like, I like all of this. And then I accidentally made Imagine Dragons my personality for about a year, which was a odd time. And as well as Bastille, which was one of the other contenders for this, Bad Blood, which is weirdly one of the 2 albums I own on vinyl. Not Night Visions.
What's the other one?
But Dookie by Green Day.
Oh, well, funnily enough, that's celebrating its 30th anniversary today, if I'm correct.
No.
I believe so.
That's spooky.
It's either today or it was really recently.
I'm looking it up. I'm sorry, I can't not now. I'm scared.
Dookie studio album.
February the 1st.
February 1st, that's 3 days ago. February 1st, 1994. Yeah. So there you go.
That's scary.
Spooky, innit?
Spooky.
It's a good album to have, though, on vinyl.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it's I don't have a record player, so it's kind of a bit of a moot point, but yeah.
Can't be mute, it's music.
I hope that sigh was audible.
I keep forgetting where I am and who I'm with. I'm meant to be semi-professional doing this now, but especially if I'm like
known you too long, I don't know if you can be semi-professional.
This is what I'm worried about because I'm starting this fucking what is it? Radio volunteering thing.
Is this a shameless plug, or is this just genuine chat that's going to get cut from the main thing?
No, I mentioned this in a previous episode, but it's official now that I've got a ton of paperwork to sign and I've got to be DBS checked, so I don't like fuck kids or something. But
I'm clapping about. I don't know if you can hear the clapping, but that's clapping not about fucking children. But well done on getting the.
Thank you very much.
Getting the job, my good sir.
Yeah, but I keep forgetting that I've interviewed bands that are from 5,000 miles away, and I've just made a joke about noncing on children. So it's, there's a
The
time and a place.
duality of man.
Yeah, quite literally. But I guess that's just that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's the way the exorcism goes in this kind of thing. But
That's
yeah,
it.
so yeah, you had Bastille, Bad Blood, Imagine Dragons, the one that I can't remember the name of because I keep
Night
forgetting.
visions.
Night Visions. I was
Night
thinking
visions.
Blood Dream for some reason. I don't know why. And then the
Well, I
third,
mean, Bad Blood, Night Visions, Blood
yeah,
Dream.
I may
Close
have
enough.
I may have gotten them mixed up. And then the third one, I think I also remember, but I'll let you spill the beans.
Well, I think that one kind of comes later in the story because the Bastille and the Imagine Dragons both were me starting liking music to the point where like I became a bit obsessed with both of those bands.
Mm.
Like I remember seeing Transformers 4 in the cinema, and I remember not much about the film, probably
Mm.
for the best, but I do remember the credits rolling and the song coming on, and it's Battle Cry by Imagine Dragons. I remember hearing
Uh,
it going, yes, I know this. This sounds good. I like this. I wonder who this is. And then making everyone who was with me stay until at the end of the cinema they actually have the music go up and you can see who sung what. I remember seeing Imagine Dragons and feeling vindicated that I did know who it was. Because really it was those two and Fallout Boy, but Fallout Boy never as much as those two, because those two were definitely the first. But later on, it then became a thing of when I finally got Spotify after Groove Shark died of death. There was many years in between, but eventually having Spotify and being able to like discover my own music. And granted, one of the other reasons that it's so hard to pick an album, specifically like a full album, is because I don't want to be judged by you, because truthfully, you also did help me discover half of my music taste at the moment.
that is true. I was going to get to that at some point.
We'll
But
we'll we'll get to
I
our
wouldn't say
phenomenal playlists,
I
I'm
wouldn't
sure.
say I wouldn't say half. I'd say slightly less than that. You've influenced me as well in the vast majority of the, but I think that's because we started our collaboration, our collaborative playlist, however many years ago.
I don't even know how many years ago.
Did
I'm
we
going to try
start
and.
it? Did we start it in Canada? Was that
I
because I
I don't actually know.
I
I
distinctly
don't know if
remember
it
us
has a
us
date on it.
I distinctly remember us saying like, oh, that we need to pull together and we need to find some tracks that we really like because we had like fairly similar music taste. Obviously, you were on the poppier side, I was on the punkier side, but we always came together with certain tracks, and we sort of went, oh, you know what? Seaway's Big Vibe is a tune. We both like this. Nightbreakers is a tune. I like this. And just a smattering of others that we really liked, and then we combined it into quite possibly the greatest playlist that's ever existed in the history of mankind.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
And it definitely helped that then we went to a couple gigs together.
that's true.
Um,
To see none of the bands that we've mentioned.
no, none
Um,
of them. Absolutely different ones completely. But no, it's
I,
it's it's been very good. But I think the summation of music that I know I liked that felt a bit more personal to me, rather than like the only person that I know full well that I share the love of this artist with is my fiance, um, is AJR, who we went to go and see live at the tail end of 2022. And it was just amazing. It
mm,
was one of the best live performances I've ever been to.
yeah,
And it just secured the fact that
I don't want to see any artists secreting anything. Thank you
no,
very much.
no, probably not. But
It's one
it
hell of a
just
concert.
yeah, it just secured in my brain how much I liked that album, and that was OK Orchestra. Because I started listening to it, I think I want to say the click was 2015. Let me quickly fact check myself here. Um,
I would normally fact check you, but I genuinely have no idea.
I can't remember when all of them came out.
This is what's interesting though.
The click was 2017. It's much later than I thought.
Oh, well, there
Sorry,
you go.
Living Room was 2013, and it was the click was 2017. So I got into them way later than I remember. But yeah, so 2017. So it would have been me at uni essentially,
Yeah.
because it wasn't as soon as it came out. It was a little older, and then I had Neo Theatre and OK Orchestra, and each of those years, so 2019 for Neo Theatre and 2021 for OK Orchestra, AJR was my most listened to artist. All of the songs of both of those albums made it onto my Spotify Wrapped. all at the very front because they were the most listened to things. The album's mostly on repeat for a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Um, I just, yeah, I always found them easy listening, but then I always go back to Bastille and Imagine Dragons. If ever I'm trying to, I like fancy something, almost, when you go home to your parents' house and they cook your favorite food, and you're like, no one
And
does it quite as good as this.
yeah.
Like I could try and cook it myself, but it
It won't
won't
be
be
the
quite
same.
like Mum's lasagna kind of vibes.
Mm.
Um,
Is it like a sort of familiar, almost nostalgic feeling when you listen to it?
yeah, yeah, and as I say, I think Night Vision wins out on that just because I personally think it's one of the strongest like debut albums of a band ever. I
Yeah.
would say, like, I mean, everyone knows how big Radioactive got in its day.
To the point where I thought they'd only released one song, and that was it. I didn't know they had a
Yeah.
whole album outside. It was like, oh, what is the discography of Imagine Dragons? Okay, we got Radioactive and End of
Uh,
List.
but my favorite song is actually, as I say, the reason it has to be the deluxe version is because it's actually Celine.
I
And
don't.
I've no idea why.
You just
I just
like
really
it.
like it.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's not one of those ones I can tell you a lot about. And I have to say, I've been listening to the podcast as a true fan should before they come on this, I would
You're
hope.
too kind. You honestly
And
like.
I worried more about the fact that I know absolutely nothing about Imagine Dragons. Um,
I think this is a sort of misdemeanor for this podcast because a lot of people that I've said, why didn't you come on here? They're like, oh, but I don't have enough to talk about the album. I was like, Laura came on with fucking ABBA Gold and we chatted about Dorset for 20 minutes and like went into details about her family, her family life and stuff. I think the point is that the album or albums in your case, is just a sort of central crux of the conversation, which is what I'm trying to broaden it out to now. Because I know a
yeah,
lot of people at work have said like, oh, I could name like 5 to 10 albums, but I wouldn't be able to talk about just one. And I go, okay, just
talk about 5 to 10 then.
come on anyway, and then we'll figure it out as we go along. But I think, yeah, you were quite a good introduction to that idea because I've known you for years, and I know that you have all these influences and all this music that you normally listen to.
I've got quite a varied music taste. Like I
Yeah.
always, when anyone asks me, "Oh, what do you listen to?" I normally reply with, "As long as it's not screamo or classical, um, I'll pretty much
Yeah,
listen to it."
but do you remember when you were in my car and you said, "What's easy core?" And I went, "Mate, you've got no idea." And some fucking
Oh
guy
yeah,
comes like, "Yeah," and you were like, "Oh, I quite like this actually."
I can do light screamo.
Well, that's what
It's
easy core is.
Yeah, it's when you get to like 20 seconds of someone sounding like
Yeah.
they're going to throw up into a microphone
And it
that it
was
gets a little bit
the water
much for
park.
me.
The water. What was the water parks one that was really heavy that you really liked
Oh,
from their recent album?
uh,
I can't remember what it's called now.
yeah,
Because
I know exactly what I mean.
because I remember you were really wanting to hear that one at the gig, which I was going to
Yeah,
retract back
it was
to.
intellectual property. It was real super dark,
Yeah.
real super dark. Honestly, I I have to say that concert itself was one of those turning points where there's something about listening to songs like that live that
Mm. There's nothing
there's
else
just
like it.
something different about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was when you mentioned like the AJR gig, and I remember it was almost this time last year where you and myself and Ewan
Yes.
all went to Alexandra Palace to watch not one, not two, but four bands in one place,
You've
which
got
was
three in that list, but fair enough. In a gig, I've also never seen, when you've got that many bands, I've never seen them progress in such a correct fashion. I don't know if that's the right way of phrasing it, but Bears and Trees were on first, and they were nice and chill, and they were like a proper indie, and they were great. I really like them. I'd never listened to them before.
I'd never heard of them before when we went, and is it Cement? Is it not Cement?
Uh, I think it might be Cement.
Is it
I want to say
Cement?
it's Cement.
It's Cement or Cemented or Cement Shoes or something. I can't remember exactly. It's something to cement. That's now in our playlist. And that was an
It's
excellent
Fresh Concrete.
fresh
Sorry,
concrete. Not even close. Cement.
we're
Thanks,
not
brain.
engineers. We're not civil engineers. It's fine.
Really showing my music knowledge there by getting the wrong material, the wrong building material. It's so bad. But yeah, they were great to start with. Then I specifically went because the main were there, who I
Yes, and
absolutely
they came on second, and they were
they were
fantastic.
so good. I'm such a huge fan. Their recent they released a deluxe version of their self-titled album fairly recently that I need to listen to.
Oh,
Uh,
it's very good.
but they've just like every single album. I mean, Lovely Little Lonely will always be my favorite purely because I've got a lot of nostalgic value to that. But
Yeah,
like,
I can understand that.
but there's like You Are Okay, XOXO from Happiness and whatever it's called, and then the recent self-titled one. All of those have been so good. And then after that was the aforementioned Water Parks, who just tore the roof off.
The fact that there was someone, and bear in mind this was the third act of the night, out of four,
Mm.
who was missing his shoes and one sock from a mosh pit was
Yeah, that was weird. I've still got that
was
video of
weird.
you when you jumped into a
What, the
mosh
one
pit.
where I just
You just
disappear?
disappear. That's so funny. I distinctly remember like watching the video and going, okay, there he is, there he is, there he is, there he is. He's gone. I have absolutely no idea where he's disappeared to. You got off to
Go through it
Narn
frame by frame.
Mosh Pit Narnia, just
Mosh
disappear
pit
off.
Narnia.
And then the final one, which I was going to bring up today, was Yumi at Six, who was
Yes,
the
I
main.
heard about this.
So they've broken up,
I
or
was
they're
shooketh hearing
not
this.
yet, but they're doing like I think they're going to Slam Dunk and then they're finishing off there.
Yeah,
I don't know how long that'll last, but funny enough, on my London walk today, because I went to London to
you
see my
accidentally
family.
fell into a Yumi at Six concert.
Well, no, Yumi at
Oh,
Six got brought up, and I mentioned how I'd been to a gig to see them, and then my brother went, "Since when did you go to a Yumi at Six concert?" And I went, "You know, when I went to Ali Pali in February," and he went, "What?" And apparently, I'd never mentioned it to him. I distinctly remember because he's a big Yumi at Six fan as well. Well, mostly. He likes two of their songs, which is Underdog and like one other, but I can't remember. Um, and he just had like no recollection of me going to that, even though we talk about gigs quite a lot. I went to see Thornhill Holding Absence with them. Um, he knew the fact that I went to Southampton to see Neck Deep as well. He knew about
yep.
that. Thanks to you and your friend, obviously.
That was
Um,
also Ewan.
that was also Ewan.
Yeah, it was Ewan's ticket. That was the one where it was just on the Thursday before a party. It was, do you want to go?
mm,
Here's a ticket.
yeah, and I was like, okay. And then I drove 2 hours to get to you in Southampton to watch them, and it was a great gig. And then I joined you at a party afterwards, and you were absolutely slaughtered. That was the
Yeah,
time I got
but
that video where the light was being really weird on your shirt, and it was like looking like you
oh
were phasing
yeah,
out of. That was very strange. I'm gonna see if I
that
have to
was a
find
very
that video. I'm making a lot of
oh
references, knowing that people are gonna listen to this. I feel like I'm just chatting to you,
yeah, we
but
are at this
I
point.
forget that this is just what this
I
is.
stand by what I said at the beginning. If this goes into the archives and eventually gets bought out one day, then fair enough. But we've done it. We tried.
Yeah, but
But
it's just I think it's great because we've had so much. You and I, particularly, I think of all the friends I've got, I bonded with you the most over music,
yes, I
definitely.
think that is a very fair statement, and
Just
I would say exactly the same back to you.
because we've had such a history of. The thing is, we in the grand scheme we haven't known each other that long. It's probably been
No,
what 5 years because it's 2019.
uh,
2019 when we met.
yeah, we met properly in the summer of
Summer of
2019.
2019, so 4.5 years. Um, and since then, I found out we went to the same university without really
Hmm.
realizing. Visited you in Canada
Yeah,
while you were
we were
studying
friends at
there.
that point. For
We
anyone
were we
listening,
were
he
friends
didn't
at that
just
point.
stalk me. That would have been very weird.
I didn't just turn up halfway across the world as much as I would love to have done that. We made a playlist called "Play with My Dick List." Uh,
Yeah,
with
you
my
asked me
dick
to pick a name, and I wasn't
with my
ready
dick
for
in
it.
parentheses was an ideal candidate for a title, and I'm very glad that it hasn't changed in the 4 years since we've had it, or three
I
years, or
mean,
however long it's been.
you
Um,
wrote the tagline: a
what's that?
playlist for people who love life almost as much as they love dick and sitting on their porcelain thrones.
No, that was you.
Was that me?
That was you. I wouldn't use the word porcelain.
It's a material. Why would you not use the word
I don't know.
porcelain?
It's just not
What
in
else
my
is a
vote.
toilet made out of?
I don't know. Gold in some cases. It's a very common thing for people who have far too much money. I
You
don't
know
know.
what? I found a way I can age our playlist.
Yeah.
Whether this is useful or not, I don't know.
Well, because for some reason my songs have gone a bit out of whack on there. But the point is that this playlist has followed us for years and years and years, and we keep updating it 3 years after we initially started it.
Yeah.
And but it's not even that because in the middle of that, when I started PunkStance early on, You were the cameraman for my first video for the Young Hearts
Yes.
one. You were the second contender of Drisk and Dinks.
Uh,
Uh,
d- don't look it up. You'll thank me later.
it was the single weirdest evening. Well, no, it was in the middle of the afternoon, and it was
It was the
Ben's
middle of the
birthday.
afternoon. It was Ben's birthday, and
He nearly evacuated an entire Waitrose.
he was.
Um, that's the most upper class thing I've ever said. Evacuating a Waitrose. I like to point out that I don't shop at Waitrose.
Is that the Tory party's tribute band to Panic at the Disco? Evacuation
Evacuating
at the
evacuation
Waitrose.
at the Waitrose. But yeah, and then you helped out with a few other videos, and then we just, I don't know, kept updating the playlist ever since I moved back from Southampton. We went on holiday to Zante and found a few tunes there to add on. Um, and since then, there's been visits and hangouts and Pokemon nights,
Yeah.
we've culminated in nights playing Pokemon, which I think is brill. I couldn't ask for anything else. But that's all come predominantly from just us having the same interests in similar music, and I think that just goes to show the power of how influential it as a medium can be,
Oh yeah.
because we've known each other for that long, and that's still what keeps us like inherently very connected.
Yeah. I mean,
Just very
the
cool.
our playlist is what I automatically like turn on whenever I'm like, oh, I fancy listening to music, or I've got to walk somewhere, or I'm waiting for an experiment to run in the lab or something. I'm I'm a chemist. Sorry, just to explain.
Yeah, he's only in like studying wise. He's not a professional chemist just yet, but that would be pretty
No,
cool.
yeah, I mean, get a
You
get a
never know.
PhD,
It could be really
Doctor
cool.
Rutt.
Dr. Rutt. Yeah. Well, I think it with those three albums that you've mentioned, that's just the tip of the iceberg of the kind of stuff
Oh, I mean,
that we've
yeah. Realistically, again, if we were picking like Desert Island discs, there'd be a much more like varied thing. Because at the moment, with Bastille and Imagine Dragons being like the forerunners, like sounds very much like all indie pop, indie rock kind of stuff. But yeah, there's a lot more to it. But to be honest, the reason is they're where it began for me.
yeah.
I don't have any vivid memories of like full albums. Like my dad used to some evenings just sit in the lounge, get his record player going and play records, but none of it ever really like sparked anything with me. It was always like, oh, this is nice, but never a oh, I love this.
Mm.
Again, beyond Crocodile Rock,
No,
which
nothing with
my
intrinsic
brother and I,
value at the time.
yeah, like I remember there were always some funny ones. Again, I've already mentioned Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. Some of those songs would always crack us up, and my mum would always rush in to turn it off because she hated it. But yeah, there wasn't as much that kind of like resonated with me until those, I suppose.
Did you have anything before that at all? Can you remember like any memories of just music being played?
Don't know really. I remember vague bits where like I don't know, a lot more like theme songs or music from films, but
Mm.
never anything like definite. Like oh, I recognize that artist and this song and anything specific. It's always little fragments, but as I say, I remember watching that music video and it being I like that. Let's go with that. That'll
So
do.
suddenly everything changed,
Yeah.
and look at you now.
Look at me now, trying to talk about music for as long as I can before it gets boring.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know how you listen to this if it's intently or just in the background, but I think
Bit of
the
both, bit of both.
the whole the whole point about this is like, there will be people that don't know you, and they'll hear someone talking about a band that they might know or they might not know, and I've known you for a while, and I understand that nothing. It's not hugely surface level, but it all stems from this one place of like, I heard Imagine Dragons one time, and now that has spiraled and cascaded you into like, well, being here, this very moment of, we have a playlist, we saw each other in Canada, we did loads of videos and fun things together,
Oh yeah,
all built around our interest in music.
yeah. When you say listening to this in terms of like, is it in the background? Is it not like? kind of sometimes it's in the background, sometimes like there's a bit if it's a band I know or I recognize more, I tend to be more engaged with it, but I feel like that's fairly standard. But I remember your first two with Cold Front. I've seen that drawing you've done of Cold Front.
You have actually,
I
yeah.
have many times, and it's wonderful. And I have listened to that. I listened to the Bearings one as you were going through it because the Bearings is fantastic. I'm
We like.
glad you introduced me to those.
I'm such a huge fan. Always will be.
I'd never heard of World Record before, one with your brother.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's a whole other different set. Like he's just very influenced by the sort of the 2010s modern rock scene, which I was as well, to be fair. Like Mallory Knox is one of my all-time favorite bands.
yeah,
And they're coming back for Slam Dunk this year, which means I have to go. Um, but I think that's where it becomes so interesting because obviously Cold Front is a very specific album for me. Very
yeah,
specific. I don't know anyone else who would ever say that that's their favorite or let alone would know what album it is, especially the people I know. Just because like I like the more independent stuff, it doesn't mean it has any more value than something like Imagine Dragons, which obviously is a very big band, very popular, but it still has a very personal attachment to you. And I think
yeah.
that's what's so interesting about doing this because you can get so many different snippets of information about an album that a lot of people know, but you have such a personal attachment to it. Just
Oh, I mean, it's hard for me not to because I have to say I've loved most of what Imagine Dragons have put out because they had 2012's Night Visions, which was fantastic,
mm,
but um, and then they had Smoke and Mirrors, which I remember really. I used to. At one point I was like, I really want to try and like have a CD collection back in the day where that still was feasible and before there was no point to it.
very
Um,
2010 of you.
Oh, very. And I remember getting Smoke and Mirrors, which was their second album, and that was one of my favorites.
Mm.
Like it was just so good. And I remember having to import a Spanish version, which had all the songs in English because, but it was the only way to get the deluxe one with the bonus songs that I wouldn't be able to get otherwise. So I wanted it. And I actually went to go and see. Well, I didn't see them live specifically for that one, but I did see them at Reading Festival
Mm.
one year where they had some of those songs, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And then they did Evolve in 2017, which I remember specifically going to that concert because I was ready. So it's not like I liked them in 2012 and then just stopped. Like they've always had all of their stuff has always had something for me. I've lessened in uh some of the more recent stuff. I remember Origins, which was their 2018 one. They pulled out a whole album in like 6 months. Origins came out the next year and it was like I don't know, it felt very quick. It probably wasn't. Like it was probably more like a year and a bit, but it still felt very quick for them to come out with a decently 15-song album. And I got to say, some of them were great. I don't think they were as good as the as Evolve. Evolve's probably my favorite Imagine Dragons album, which is very counterintuitive considering Night Visions is the one I came on to talk
Well,
about.
there's a difference between your favorite and your most important or
Mm.
influential. I think it's the same with like people when I say a lot of the time I have my favorite movie and I think I have the movie that I think is the best. Uh,
Which are they again? Because
so
I know it was Monsters Inc. at one point, which I
it
have to
was.
say is amazing.
Well, Monsters Inc. is the first film I ever saw in the cinema, I believe. That could have been made. I know it was the first time my brother went, but I can't remember. Anyway, that's what I've based it on. It could be a lie, but I still like it as a film. Um,
Great.
my favorite film of all time is The Nice Guys,
Yeah, fantastic.
which is just so stupid, and I love it. It's the film that I would say is that if I was to make one, that is almost identical to how I would make my first film. But the best film I've ever seen is Singing in the Rain.
Yeah, I remember.
So The Nice Guys isn't like the best film I've ever seen. It's just the one that I have the biggest attachment to because it's really silly and just Ryan Gosling is my boo.
Do you know
But
what the only issue I have with the Nice Guys is for whatever reason I always get it confused with the other guys, which is not as good of a film.
I mean, The Other Guys is good for 5 minutes when Samuel L. Jackson
I
and
mean,
I can't remember who the other person is now. I think it's Dwayne Johnson. jump off a building
Aim
and
for the bushes.
aim for the bushes and
Aim for the
die
bushes.
right at the beginning. So stupid. But yeah, that's so. I think I completely understand what you mean because Evolve might be the best Imagine Dragons album, but Night Visions is your favorite.
Yeah.
So it's very separate.
But then after that they had Mercury Act One,
Yeah.
which I gotta say took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting it to come out. I saw a article or something like the week before saying it's due out next week. I was like, well, great. I had no idea, but there was a good few years gap in between. But it's nice to know that they kept themselves busy during COVID.
Oh yeah,
Um,
we all
and
did.
then they very quickly after released Mercury 2. And so now they've just compounded them into the same album. So Mercury Acts 1 and 2 is a 32 song album now.
That just seems too long. That's
It
too
is.
long.
Why they released it in two halves, but you can't get the halves. It's just one or the other now. It's just all one now, even.
Mm,
And then they, as a 10-year anniversary, did Super Deluxe Night Visions in 2022, which
yeah,
had a load of like extra demos and ones that had never seen the light of day. But yeah, it's good. It's good. It's hard to
yeah.
argue with that one.
I mean, as I've known you for such a long time, I imagine we've had our fun times, but we've also had our tough times. Uh, as
As all
as
friends do.
as everyone does. Um, but has music played a role, specifically these albums or just music in general, has it played a role in helping you through trials and tribulations that you've experienced?
Music in general or Imagine Dragons?
Yes, just like
In which
whatever.
case, my answer is also yes.
Yes.
I have songs that remind me of certain people. I
Yeah.
might even have entire playlists where they're. How long is that playlist now?
Oh, it's like 20 hours long.
Yeah, 17 hours, 18 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
getting that way. I might have entire playlists that I share with people. And listening to those songs or like that playlist or whatever, I feel like it grounds you quite well.
Mm.
Like it reminds you of what made that important to you and what they are, why they are important to you. So I think, yeah, and I think it was something Laura said in her one is that you got songs you can listen to when you're angry, you got songs you can listen to when you're sad, you got songs you listen to when you're happy. A lot of my playlists are the same playlist. It's just how I feel, and
Yeah.
they adapt to what I want to feel. Like I feel like they just amplify my mood, whatever my mood is, but always with a positive spin.
Yeah.
Like there's something about being a little bit pissed off at the world and then getting one of the very few particularly heavy Imagine Dragons songs come on. Like I'm so sorry is a very good one to punch the air to and just be like, yeah, fuck the world and everyone in it, but in a good way somehow.
Yeah. I think it always reminds me of when I was collating a load of songs when I was with you in Canada. Like Close by Nightbreakers was always one I came back
Hmm.
to. But there were like a few songs specifically in Canada that I remember. I think there were so many, I can't remember them now. But one of the main
Hum is one of my favorites, by the way.
yeah.
I
Uh
mean,
you've
it's hard
that
to get away from it. Old Friends by Chief.
Old Friends by Chief is always a classic. And then I think the main one that is attributed to me more so from your fiance than you is Wild Truth's No Filter,
Oh, absolutely,
which is
absolutely.
has become like a defining song of our friendship. But I think the thing that I remember the most is I'm going to spill the beans on this to my parents. When I went to Canada and we got incredibly high on
Oh, okay, we're announcing this in public. It was
well,
legal, so
it
it's
was legal.
okay.
It's in Canada, so it's fine. And we had some of those. We had those edibles that we bought, and returning back to Pokemon once again, we were talking about we had
Oh,
our
I know exactly where you're going.
the single greatest nostalgia hit that we've ever had collectively.
I had to check my laptop for the next day to make sure I hadn't accidentally downloaded anything really dodgy because we spent it felt like hours. It was
It
probably
did.
about 4 minutes trying to figure out how to run a bootleg copy of Flash so that we could play Pokemon Tower Defense and other such games from the good old Flash games era.
Yeah. And I remember that night when we were doing that, and we had all that, we had our playlist that we just started in the background playing, and I've never felt, I say this genuinely, I've never felt so close to a person. In that one moment
Oh.
when we were like sat there talking about how we would hide under our duvets playing Pokemon when we were like 7 or 8.
And then you've got to have the DS. But
And
if you're in a multiplayer thing and you're like connecting because you didn't have to pay for Wi-Fi subscriptions and
yeah,
weird things back then.
and,
It was just you had to keep it open and then you had to deal with the light
and it
or
threw
if you were just on Pokemon, you just close it and hide it under a pillow and you have to do that sneaky pretend you're asleep thing.
but it just threw me back, and we had this music in the background. I distinctly remember Nightbreaker's Close being on. That's
Oh,
one
I mean,
I really remember that one.
there's a reason that it's the first song you added to our
Yeah,
joint
and I think it
playlist.
was from their EP Feelings, if I remember correctly. Um,
I'll quickly do a little fact check of you there.
but I just like
It
that.
was indeed.
Ugh, sometimes I do impress myself. Um, but I think
To be fair,
that
I think most of these songs are on that playlist at some point,
well, exactly. I think I've added the whole EP just
but
because
not
I was
all at once. It just came in
just
drips and
on
drabs, which is
separate
not a
separate
problem.
moments. Yeah, and that moment is such a defining part of my life. That one night where we embraced each other, we did like the biggest hug we've done because we were feeling so nostalgic, and I always attribute that to the music that was playing in the background. And we had all the it's just like it's such an honest, I know I was high on drugs, but it was such like it's the most joyous moment of my life at that point because it was
There was something just fantastic, and just all of the fun we had on that entire trip because that was the
brilliant.
last night, and it all culminated where we were looking back not only on the trip but also on like our friendship, and it was a very good moment.
It was defining, and I think that is the power that music can have, that it takes you back.
And drugs, the power
and
of drugs
and
as well.
and hard drugs, yeah.
Well,
um
not hot.
Not hard drugs,
Is it?
just legalized marijuana
Yeah.
in a country that's halfway across the world. But it had this, I don't know, it just had this cosmic feeling to it. It was one of those out of body experiences that I can look back on and I see us just like giggling
I
at your laptop on the
I
floor
I
trying to
tell you
find
what,
this
it's
toffee.
hard to like if I look back and I think of our apartment in Canada when we were out there on placement, like I look back, I can remember how that room looks. Like I
So can
can
I, yeah.
picture it, but I can't picture it better than that night for some reason. That specific corner of the room in front of the TV with the laptop. I know what you mean. Just there's
And
something about like it's like only I can't even say only those four walls because there were only two. We were in a little corner. Like that was all it takes, really.
yeah, but it's those kind of memories. And the same with the day we first met properly when we did our camping trip that we said we'd do every year and then never did
And never did.
because the first one was so good.
It was
Um
really good.
and
I
we had a
don't remember music playing as much of a role on that one.
no, it didn't, but we had a speaker in the middle, but that was like the first time I remember us chatting about music because it was all on. I hadn't started any of this punk stance stuff yet, but I had an interest and I was talking about all this music that I'd found. Then I nearly broke my leg, um, and a
Yeah,
smattering, so many things. How I burnt a man's pants and threw his shoes in a pile of nettles,
and then blamed the
and
other
then blamed
person.
the other person. It's like an episode of The Traitors all over again. It was brilliant. I think it just culminates in the fact that we are such good friends, and we always have been, and we've had our bumps as we all do. Um, but I think what that's done is highlighted just how close we actually are as a result
Yeah,
of the music we're interested in, and like the amount of stuff we've done. Like I would not have traveled all the way to Canada if it wasn't you. If it was anyone else, I wouldn't have been as bothered,
it sounds
honestly.
far less dramatic, but I haven't had to follow you to another country yet.
It's
But
true, yeah.
I wouldn't. I don't know how to say this properly, but I don't think my music would be as enriched as it is without knowing you in terms of like the concerts we've been together have kind of, you know, we haven't even mentioned the State Champs concert.
Oh yeah, that was May
Yeah,
22.
yeah,
Yeah,
with Between You and Me and Heart Attack Man,
that
which
was a
was
great, that was
fantastic.
a
And
great gig.
that was probably the first time I went, I can actually cope with some of this heavier stuff.
Yeah.
Like in my head, screamo was a big umbrella term, and then I learned that it was just a very teeny tiny umbrella standing out in the rain that I still didn't want much to do with, but
Mm.
there was other stuff. And that we've already said about the You Me and Six concert, like all of that, it's, I don't know, it feels like it's always been a defining feature. That and the fact that you've always been telling me how much you wanted to do this as an entity,
I'd
because
always,
you've been wanting to do this for
I'd
ages.
always talked about it, hadn't I? I'd like because I'd been creating YouTube videos and stuff for so goddamn long.
I love some of your old YouTube videos.
Oh,
I mean,
don't start. I can't be dealing with that right
oh,
now.
if honestly,
If the
what was it?
PunkStance YouTube page ever makes a return,
No, I'm not talking about the punk stars. I'm not
oh,
the OG Nitalics
from two,
YouTube page.
wow, that name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah,
From
but
2015, I started that.
didn't you used to do like cat games?
Oh yeah, so what?
Like
Yeah,
I
one of
can't
the thing.
remember the exact
So
thing, but
one of the things I used to do, I used to have a show called Rapid Retrospect, where I would review games really quickly for no reason, just because I thought it was funny. I did like a Ben 10 Protector of Earth one. I did a Burnout 3 one, which I actually do need to reference because I make so many music jokes in it for the soundtrack.
oh, I
But
mean, we can go on to
that's a
game
whole
music in a minute
that's
because
a whole
we
other
could
thing.
talk for ages about
Yeah.
Rocket League.
Yeah, yeah, Jesus Christ. But I think yeah, the most defining thing I ever did was when I did Battle Cats,
I rem
Neko Atsume, and then this I can't remember what it's called. It was a cat RPG that was a huge rip off of Skyrim. It was like a top down thing where you played as like the cat born or the where you have like these abilities because you were born a
that
certain
sounds
way.
about right.
Definitely wasn't a Skyrim rip off.
No,
But
absolutely
the whole
not.
point is that I pretended to be really drunk. A load of people believed me when I said I did actually get really pissed and did it. It's not true. I just acted the whole thing, but it was so stupid because I can't remember exactly what I did now. I think the first episode I ever did was the Battle Cats one, and I did a little 1 minute sketch of me waking up in the middle of a field with a ton of sheep, with a wine bottle, uh, and it had absolutely no relation to the game whatsoever. It's just something I thought would be really funny. But I mean, it started off with me like doing shit vlogs in my bedroom. I've got them held somewhere, but I used to
I
do this.
mean, I don't want to tell you, but I don't know if it's because I'm subscribed, but I can find the Natalis YouTube channel.
I mean, you're more than welcome to share. People can go and find it if they really want. But
I'm just saying, if you
the
want it
whole
off the internet, now is the time.
the whole point is that I have been creating content in massive quotation marks for nearly 10 years.
Creating or the content or content creating?
All, yes, just whatever you think, wherever the quotation marks
Option
need to
B,
be.
yes to
Yeah,
all.
yes to all. But I've been creating content for like a decade because I
Hmm.
always had this, or I thought I had a creative streak in me, which I explored with Carlo about how we both did drama, and you know, I always had like a an inkling for English, as it were. But what that has led to is me making my first page, my first YouTube channel, a second YouTube channel, and then a third YouTube channel, which was as a result of me getting bored and writing about music, which then became PunkStance in September of 2020. And then I made videos for that. I carried on posting with that. And then I kept saying to you, maybe I should do this as a podcast instead. And you went, yeah, you should. And then never did it.
Yeah,
Um,
you never did it to
and
keep
then it
like an extra year and a half, 2 years.
and then it only took me to about September of last year when I was going through and I don't mince these words, the shit that I was like, I need to let out all of this anger and concern and general anxiety into something that's healthy but also kind of weird. So I made a podcast about albums that have helped me and music that's kept me alive and being happy. And what it's done is it's transpired into quite possibly the best idea I've ever had.
Oh,
Like
I
people,
mean, I knew from as soon as you said I want to do this, I want punk stance. I don't want to, call you out here, but You said at the very beginning, you were like, I want it to be a brand, the
Well,
Stance
I
brand.
wanted Stance to be a brand.
Yeah, and I've got to be honest. As soon as you said it, as soon as you told me what your idea of it was, I like if I had any money, I'd have invested it, but I don't, so it's fine. Because the way you told me, and I remember you telling me, and I just remember your like you lighting up as a human being. Like I was like, yeah, well, this guy knows what he's going to do with his life. He probably doesn't know that this is what he's going to do, but I can tell because you were so passionate and forthcoming, and you had all of these ideas and creativity just like spilling out of every orifice, and it was just fantastic to see. So I've always known it would happen. It was more a question of when, not if.
Yeah. And look at us now,
Look at us now having a chat about
having the very conversation
things.
about the thing we were doing.
Whoa, is this metagaming?
Oh my God, it's Punk Stanceception.
Whoa.
Whoa. Anyway,
Is this going to get referenced in the future when you have Christopher Nolan stance as a separate channel?
Nolan stance.
Nolan stance.
Well,
It's just about people called Nolan.
it's literally just about, yeah, Nolan North can be in there, Christopher Nolan can be in there. End of list, I think. I can't
End
think
of
of it.
list. I
Um,
mean, you could do Chris stance. I feel like there's more
yeah.
Chris's.
Imagine there being, yeah, like everyone with a name has their own stance page, and you can just talk to people that
Your own name.
what was the name of the was it like that Jamie page where loads of people met at Area 51 and had a fight with pool noodles? Remember this?
Oh no, I know what you
It's like you
mean,
had
but
to
I
fight
can't
for your.
remember what
It
the
was like
name
people called
was.
like Jamie Stones or something, and everyone had to have the same name, and you had to fight to the death to who could keep the name. Be like
Yeah,
that. It'd be like that, but on an app. I mean, it's just I don't know. I look at it now, like I'm literally sat here in my room, now living not where I used to, living in a town I never thought I'd be living in, doing a job I never thought I would be doing, but I've gone from being bored at 20 and needing an idea to keep me busy to being occupied and working at 23, but having the same idea just evolved two or three times. And it's always been a very sort of,
hopefully
it's,
less bored.
yeah, it's stuck around. I've had so many fucking ideas that just haven't landed with anyone. And now, I don't know, I feel like it's the most mature and most honest encapsulation of my creative energy because I get to talk to people about their experiences via music while sharing my own experiences and knowledge about music. And it gives the most honest depiction of people that I've seen. And I think that's what I want. That's where I want people to think when they come on here. They're like they're gonna hear themselves in the most authentic manner possible.
Yeah, I think authentic is probably the best word. Like the whole point of this is to be genuine about everything.
Yeah.
Like there is literally it's just chat as if no one's listening and enjoy the ride, which is again why if this ever makes it to, I was about to say print, but
Print. Just print.
what
Yeah, get
do
the
podcasts get taken to?
oh
Spotify.
yeah, audio medium kind of things.
It doesn't really flow as well when this gets
No.
taken to audio medium.
Taken to audio medium. Well, it's got to get there somehow.
But when it
Um,
gets there, sure. But I can't remember what I was saying. But yeah, be genuine. That's pretty much all it takes.
yeah.
And you're one of the most genuine people I know. So,
Oh,
hard to argue with that.
and to you, mate. Honestly, like it's. But that's what's. I think this conversation has been brilliant because we both know that it all came from our very distinct interest in just having music. It's just, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what more you have to add on the subject of just music and our relationship in general. But
I don't
it's
know, really. You've got good hair.
thanks, mate.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
You look
Yeah.
like Jesus for a while. That was fun.
Oh my God, yes. I started
Do
punk
people at
stance.
work know about that?
Yeah, they do. I started
Okay,
punk
good.
stance when I had really long hair because I was growing it out because I chose not to shave it in COVID times because I don't know, I like my hair. Much like that song. What's the song called where you do the two hops? Two hops this time. Do right foot,
Cha
left
cha
foot.
slide.
Yeah, much like the cha-cha slide, my hair receded and took a step back. So I built that joke up far too much,
You really did. I'm sorry.
but Yeah, I mean, I think more so. I'm amazed at how much I've changed since starting it. Because I used to just find album what I liked, write a little bit about it, and put it out. And now I have genuine relationships with bands, some from mostly from the UK, but some, all the way
You're
in
branching out. You're branching out.
New
Give it time.
Jersey. I've got one planned for some guys in Australia. I could never have imagined that me starting off as a lowly 20-year-old with yourself as my friend who I talk about music to, that it would lead to me also talking to you now at 23, but also having connections that are 5,000 miles away with exactly the same like starting point of just talking about music. And whether it be Imagine Dragons, AJR, Bastille, or fucking Slipknot, I don't know. I
They're
don't
a
know.
little strong for my
Yeah.
taste. I'm still working on them. I'm getting used to it.
But it doesn't matter who
But
it is because everyone I talk to, barring one because he's a boring twat, likes music in some way. I don't know. It's so gratifying to hear that from you because it shows that not only have I grown, but I don't know, this whole idea, this whole channel, this whole concept of punk stance, as it were, has, I don't know, blossomed into something more than I could have ever imagined.
oh yeah,
Madness, I say, madness.
that's a different band here.
Yeah, they were around a bit of a long time ago. I say it's like 40 years whenever Madness were around. I don't know, I love it. It's so good. And I obviously I know your music very well, but it's clear that your three albums are fairly similar in terms of my Cold Front, but they're just like it has all this influence on you.
Absolutely. But no, I meant to say actually, just because it's been appearing on my feed. Um, Between you and me are playing at in Southampton in like 3 weeks.
Yes, they are with Young Culture and one other band that I can't remember right now.
Do you want to go? It's
I
a Thursday. Is the only issue.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? I did actually
Yeah,
think about that. I did think of going, but I only have so much holiday, sadly,
yeah.
because like this isn't my job yet.
Understandable.
Much as I wish it
Understandable.
could be. It's very sad. But that's the way it works. Just got to deal with it.
Have you got any gigs lined up that you're going to? Not that
Well,
you're playing any. We'll save that for another time. Next step
I
in the.
honestly I don't know. I'm hoping to get to Slam Dunk for the
Hmm.
year. And obviously, if all goes well, I'm hopefully going to Buffalo, New York to see
Yes.
uh Previous Love, one of the greatest bands that's ever lived. If you're listening, guys, hello. I I would do things to you. And I'm so excited to go, honestly, because they said, oh, if you do come, we'll plan a gig with loads of local bands so you can see and like hang out. And this is this is the best thing about doing this because you get to do stuff like that. You get people actively encouraging you to be like, come to my city, come and hang out. We want to play music for you. I feel like a celeb, but like the worst kind.
It's not that bad.
It's just it's so having these meetings with bands and hearing their passion for what they do and just it's so good. I love it. And but I can spread it around because I can talk to bands, but I can also talk to people like you who just ooze creativity.
Do I?
Yeah.
Nice. Sorry. Um,
You absolutely do. It's great.
no, I try. I don't think I'm particularly creative in normal senses, and then
Well,
I sometimes have good ideas. Well, okay, not to blow my own like trumpet, but sometimes have great ideas, but the rest of the time they are awful.
awful. Yeah.
Like it's
I
it's
agree with
very
that.
much a 0 to 100 moment.
Yeah.
Again, without wanting to make us sound more like nerds, because we've already covered that we play Pokemon. Um, we I was playing D&D earlier, and I've been planning a campaign, and I'm like trying to second guess everyone, and I can't tell if I'm being too clever and they're being too dumb as players, or I'm being too dumb and they're being too clever. I'm in this
Well,
weird middle stage where just nobody knows.
well, speaking of nerdy behavior, I believe previously you mentioned Rocket League and game
Oh,
soundtracks
now,
that we
right,
didn't
that's a
cover.
segue and a half.
Well, yeah, please continue.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love your Rocket League playlist.
Yes, I forgot I actually made one. Is this the, well, there's two, because there's the actual Rocket League playlist, and then there's Thank You for Opening the Bassist Door for Me.
That's exactly the one I
Yeah,
meant.
that one, yeah. That's based off a very obscure Frankie Boyle quote from 2005.
I don't
Um,
even know the quote. I just know the playlist.
it's from Mock the Week, I think. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've been building that up. This is a side project of mine, not side project, but like side interest because I'm a huge drum and bass fan. I love drum and bass. It's like I grew up with Pendulum. I grew up with Camera and Crooked. I remember buying. I think it was like the best of drum and bass and drum step Monster Cat Volume One on CD from like 2010. Um, I loved it. It was so good, and that has now transpired to being was now sort of moved from that initial interest all the way to having not only a drum and bass playlist, but uh, a active team on Rocket League with
Oh
yourself
yeah.
that we are kind of good at
Sometimes.
sometimes if we're not
Depends
against
on the
platinum,
day.
not playing against platinum players.
We can
And
survive against platinums. We
Champions.
don't excel against them.
Yeah, we're not ideal. But I mean, I think that's another thing about both of us. You know, we are big gamers, in a very literal sense, not like the insult that it is now. Like, oh my God, you're such a gamer. Um, but I love it. I've always been interested in it to the point where I was telling the story the other day. When I was what 6 or 7, my mum said that I wasn't allowed to play on the PS2 unless I invited a friend round to play it with. So there was a girl that liked me, and I quite liked her, called Anastasia, and I invited her over to play, as you do when you're 7. And instead of playing with her, I played Cars, the video game, by myself because I invited a friend round, and she went outside and played on the trampoline with my brother. So I was a terrible child, but I loved playing Cars, the video game, because it had a great soundtrack. It had 3 songs, which was Night Drive by the All American Rejects, Here I Am by The Explosion, and What I Want by the Autopilot Off. It only had 3 songs, and it was bloody awesome.
It didn't even have the song from Cars.
No Rascal Flats in there.
Oh, Life is a Highway. What a
Life
song.
Life is
You
a
know what? It
highway.
took me so long to learn that that wasn't the original.
No, goodness me, no, I can't remember the original's
It's
by,
just
but that was
it's just one of those things where I just blindly accepted.
yeah, this part of that. But no, it's that was another example of how because obviously I could talk about Burnout 3 for hours and hours, which I probably will at some point. But Cars the video game was another one with a soundtrack, a very limited soundtrack,
Now,
but
my question is, we've got
one
Cars the video game, we've had
yeah,
Rocket League, and you mentioned Burnout 3.
yeah.
Is that
It's
also Cars?
yeah, it's like one of the best racing games I've ever played. But I'm not a
So the
huge
question now becomes, what is it with car games? What's the music in car games? What does it do?
Well, I mean, you've even got stuff like Need for Speed. I played Need
Yeah.
for Speed Undercover and Need for Speed Most Wanted. They were pretty good, decent soundtracks. Um, but then you've also got like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which is something that the
I
guy from
mean, a skateboard is basically just a car without an engine, right?
Yeah,
It's just pedal powered essentially.
well, it's
Except
foot
the pedal
powered.
is your foot. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, game soundtracks have played a vital. I mean, even the music from Pokemon, like the tunes of I found was it that video I found of like the guys doing a whole orchestra worth. Some guy on guitar, some guy on I can't remember what his name is now, but he did an entire 20-minute video covering every single song from Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire.
Oh yeah.
And it was
I remember that video.
it's quite possibly one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Um, but like that's the nostalgia from it as well, playing Pokemon and having the music there. Maybe I've just been interested in music since I was a little wee babby boy, playing Pokemon and Cars the video game, and even yeah, even watching Cars the movie and listening to Life is a Highway by the Rascal Flatts. And yeah, life is a highway, and I'm going to drive it all night long.
It's hard to argue with that.
Yeah,
It really is.
yeah. Well, the thing is, I this is the problem because I could go on for ages doing this, but I feel as a final comment for us both,
Okay.
those 3 albums that this whole thing was about.
Oh, way back. I don't
Um,
think we're on the second segment of a Zoom call, and I'm not sure we've actually mentioned the albums since the very beginning of this second
yeah,
half.
well, that's just what happens, is it, when you segue too much? But of those albums, of the 3, how would you summarize their impact on your life, either individually or collectively?
That is a big question.
It's the question.
But it is the question. I suppose that's really the point of doing this. But collectively, I don't know. I almost want to say like that's what music is for me. Which I don't know if that's just a bit of a weak answer or if that's a really good answer, but it's kind of what it is. Like there are two that were the very beginnings of my love of music, and they're still bands that I love listening to today. Granted, I'm slightly less obsessed, which is probably a good thing. In every single release that comes out, and I would like watch them days in advance, be like, oh my god, it's coming, and wait for it like it was Christmas. I don't do that anymore, probably as I say for the best. And then AJR as a band as well is just one that I have really liked. I just found them later. But they're just a lot weirder. And I liked that because like growing up claiming that my personality trait was defined by Bastille Imagine Dragons puts you in a little bit of a kind of basic music taste kind of camp, even if they're really good songs. If everyone thinks they're just, what's current and it doesn't mean as much. Whereas AJR are objectively weird. Like the stuff they do, the sampling they take, the instruments they use. I love the random nature of it. I love the fact that it all works so well. And I love their storytelling. I feel like that's something that Bastille do as well, less so in Bad Blood, but more so in like their future ones, like their newer stuff. Honestly, it sounds really bad. I know I've just said how much I love these people, and then I've completely forgotten the name of the album that I want to talk about. But yeah, Give Me the Future, that's the one. There's a song in it called Back to the Future, which always is one of my favorites, so I always get confused with those. But yeah, Give Me the Future, the whole thing is like the story of the evolution of interactions with the internet, and that's progressed through the whole album. Whereas AJR, each song is an individual story, which is something I really like about it. And everyone's got a message. Whereas Imagine Dragons, truthfully, they're just bops. It's hard to say too much more. Like there is a story involved, but it's far more like I don't know. It's far less obvious. Whereas the other two, there's far more like structure to the story that's told. But
Would have been good to have said all that at the beginning, wouldn't it?